host or producer?
I love it. That is super, super cool. And I wish I was ambitious as you are at that age.
Yeah, so I'll get started with the first question. So for you, when did you get interested in the NFL side? And obviously you were a former NFL cheerleader, but when did you get interested in the sports industry, and who was your biggest influencer in that?
Man, that's a jam-packed question. Well, I mean, I've been in the sports world my entire life. That's just kind of how I grew up. I grew up in a really big sports family. I was a competitive dancer all my life, so I always knew that I wanted to go to the professional level, but football was a really big part of my life. I mostly grew up a college football fan, but kind of once I got to the college level and realized how much I loved the NFL, that's really when I decided to transition into being in the football industry. So yeah, it's just been something that was ingrained in me from a really, really young age. My dad would sit us down on the couch every Saturday morning to watch College Game Day. And that's kind of how I fell in love with it and became part of me.
I want to ask now, obviously having the podcast, being able to just enjoy analyzing and talking about football and, having fun with that a little bit as a host. What's that been like? What's the transition been like from being a cheerleader to now getting to kind of sit back and analyze the league?
Yeah, that's a great question. I spent all of my time in the broadcast industry before I got into podcasting. So I think for me, I had so many different experiences working for different news stations and covering football live on the field, and, anywhere from covering high school football to covering, Super Bowl week. And so it was kind of a really different experience for me when I first transitioned into my first reporter job, because I felt like I was supposed to be in a position on the field that I wasn't in anymore. And it was really, I think, a humbling experience because, I first started obviously as an intern, and then I was an audio engineer, and then I was production assistant, specialist, whatever they call it. And then they finally gave me my first Friday Night Football high school gig. And that was really the start of it for me, was realizing, man, I'm in a different position now. It's not the same. I kind of need to humble myself a little bit. But I think that that's kind of the best way that I don't know, like, could be reintroduced to the industry in a different point of view, seeing things differently. Because you get so wrapped up in the glory and the lights and the cameras and the action and everything. And so being able to finally, I think now, be working on my own as a journalist, after I've, had so many different stops, now I'm finally able to appreciate the game in a different way. I'm not so focused on the X's and O's and getting certain interviews and everything. It's telling the story from my point of view, and how I want somebody to see my guest. So, it all started when I started my own podcast that I still run, which is called After Orange Slices. So that was really, for me, like the original time when I realized, wow, I've been doing all of these live interviews on television that are only, a minute or two long, and you're never getting the full story of what somebody wants to say. Usually a coach has to run back out on the field, or they have to X the interview because something's going on. So now I'm able to spend time with people for a long extended period of time and really get the full story and get to know who they are and help my guests explain who they are really off the field, off the court.
So when did you get interested in being a cheerleader, and what was the experience like in high school, college, and then obviously in the NFL? But first, when did you get interested in the cheerleading business?
Well, like I said, I grew up a competitive dancer my entire life. So I started dancing at about 2 years old, and that was just something that I did my entire life. There were no questions as far as, if I was going to take things to the professional level. It was just always something that I felt like was part of my journey and was part of me. So yeah, there was never really a turning point, just because I had been dancing for so long that just seemed like the normal progression. And that's just kind of how things went. The hardest part really for me was retiring, just because all of a sudden I had lost my identity. For so long, I was this really, really talented dancer. And in the NFL, most squads are strictly from a competitive dance background. There are a couple squads that have stunt teams too. But for me, yeah, it was just difficult because all of a sudden when I retired, it was like, who am I anymore? Because that had been my entire life. So I don't think there was really like a certain time where I realized, oh, I'm interested in this. It was just something that was always part of me. The hardest part for me was leaving and realizing who I was without dance, without the NFL cheerleading in me.
I have a question about, as a cheerleader, when there's a really, really exciting game going on, how do you enjoy that at the same time as obviously having to perform?
That's a really great question, because I was answering this on my TikTok the other day. You really can't, like, I'm not saying I do love the games, but I'm just saying you don't get to enjoy it in a way that somebody might think you would. You have to pay attention to so many other things going on during the game, where the ball is on the field, how close we are to the 2-minute warning. Like, there are a plethora of things that you have to keep track of before even really knowing what's going on in the game as a whole. And that's difficult, because always what I would have to go do would be go back home after the game and watch the game all over again just to enjoy it, and not be taking it piece by piece, which is what you're doing during the game, paying attention to when the music is coming on and certain other game day operations cues that I think are like make it difficult to really enjoy the game. It's just not that it's stressful, and not that it's a little bit stressful. There's just so many other things to pay attention to that people don't even realize are going on.
So you went to college in Oregon, and Justin Herbert played for Oregon, and now he's playing for the Chargers. So how ironic is it that you were cheerleading for the Oregon Ducks and the Chargers, and you're seeing now Justin Herbert playing for both teams?
Yeah, it's funny because people just think I'm biased. And I'm like, I'm not biased. Have you not seen this guy play? And I said that I would see him come out. I predicted that he would maybe get the start around week 5. Obviously sucks that Tyrod Taylor's out, but I'm so impressed with, I was so impressed with his initial NFL debut. And I think a lot of people were, because nobody really gave him as the quarterback at Oregon the time of day. But this guy, I mean, he's changed offenses his 4 years all in college, first having Mark Helfrich as the coach, then Willie Taggart was there for a year, and then Mario Cristobal switched things up his, last 2 years. So he's such an impressive quarterback that I think never got enough credit, just because there are so many guys to compete with, and I think that he's really showing that Oregon Ducks can compete at the pro level. So many people, again, say that because the offense is run in a different way that so many of these guys don't make it. And yeah, that's true for most colleges, because it's just difficult to get adjusted to pro systems. But I think for me, it is definitely hard to not be biased, but I do think that, he's so talented. I am so proud to be a Duck, and for him to have come from, our university, and be succeeding initially so quickly.
Now, that being said, what's your prediction going forward for this season for the Chargers? What do you see them as the end of the season? Do you see the playoffs?
I mean, initially, yes, I did see the playoffs. And I think especially when Justin Herbert first got that start against the Chiefs, I was so impressed with him. So impressed. And I think, they should have won that game. They definitely should have won last week against Tom Brady and the Bucs. But so I definitely think it can be done. Do I think they're going to win the division? No, I think the Chiefs will win, but I definitely see them getting a wild card seed. Yeah, I mean, I think the talent is there. We just keep getting injury after injury. And, my favorite player obviously is Austin Eckler. So to watch him go down was frustrating. So I don't know. I think we're going to get a wild card seed. There are some divisions that just really suck. I mean, look at the NFC East. They've all losing. The Redskins right now would win the division, and they all have losing records. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be a wild card spot for the Chargers.
Yeah,
you don't know, disappointing. I'm in Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
No, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and we're even worse actually, 1-3, and our defense sucks this year. So I don't know what we can do to improve it. But my next question to you: how grateful are you that the Chargers gave you the opportunity to be a cheerleader for them, and what experiences did you gain from that opportunity and seeing that team in close up in person?
It is funny, even more so than college, when you're on the field, everything is just bigger. when you see players walking by in and out of the locker room, they're so tall. Like, they're just so big. And it's just funny because it feels like you're popping out of the television or something. I don't really know how to explain it, but of course I'm really grateful to the organization, but I think really me being on a part of the team was a testament to my work ethic and everything that I've accomplished in my life before I made the team. And I don't think people even realize, how difficult it is to make the team and the difficult processes that you go through to get there. And I think, again, like I said, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it comes down to work ethic. There's a lot of women that want to take your spot, a lot of men now these days. And so it was just, I think, a prideful thing for me for sure, but it is difficult because you do have to have another job just to have a full-time income. We always called it a part-time job, but a full-time commitment. So it has to be your number one commitment, but you have to make money in other ways. And so that was definitely the most difficult part. But of course, I love it. I definitely miss that factor of being out there on Sundays in that way. But it's a lot of pressure. There are a lot of things that you go through that I don't wish for any person. I don't wish on my worst enemy. Just because, like, for me, I'm definitely in recovery now, but I had an eating disorder that was definitely exacerbated while I was on the team. And a lot of my mental health issues were especially came to light at that time. And I think, looking back now, there were things that I wish I handled in a different way. And I wish that I could have appreciated a little more the position that I was in, and that I was doing something that most people could never dream of doing. But most people always ask, would I want to go back? And no, I think I'm in the perfect position that I need to be in now to be able to spread my message, help other people. I'm so glad I did it, but it's not a sustainable career for most people just because, we're not there yet.
Right.
So one of the ways I started out was through helping high school students. As a younger kid, I wanted to use reverse mentoring to help high school students who are going through things like mental health issues. And one thing that's really hard to do is when someone's in that state of mind, convincing them and really getting the point across. Now, when you look back at other cheerleaders who are in your position, who are in a position that you were in, how do you get the message to them in a way that, really sinks in?
That's difficult because I always say you really need to go through it before you really understand what somebody's talking about.
Yeah.
Because half of the people who I try to impart my wisdom, if you want to call it that, but share my thoughts and what I've been through, half the people won't even understand until they've been through something similar. Mm-hmm. And it kind of comes back down to whenever you're thinking of starting something and you want to accomplish something in your life, whether it be a business or just working on something within yourself, everyone always says, oh, just jump in and just do it. Just try. Like, you're never going to be ready. And I kind of disagree because for me, there were a lot of things that I was not ready to handle in my life until I got older and realized how to deal with those. I just wasn't mature enough yet. I hadn't been through enough adversity, especially with my mental health, dealing with depression. And I think it took going through it for me to understand and really understand what people were talking about when people would try to share their wisdom with me. So as much as I want to help a younger generation, I think it really takes going through the hard parts of life, the crap, just the stuff that we don't even want to think about that we've been through. You have to go through it before you're ready to take on anything else in life, whether it be in sports, in business, whatever. Like, you cannot learn from anybody else as much as you can learn from yourself in your hardest moments.
Yeah. So my next question here is, so with your podcast, and obviously I had Turbin on my show, and that was an honor for having him on the show. And when did you start connecting with him, and how often do you do your shows? And he said that you guys are starting back up, but how often do you
Yeah. So he came on my podcast initially. That was how we had met. We were connected through a mutual friend, and he really enjoyed being on my show. And it was so funny because I loved that he said this. He was like, oh my gosh, like we had such a great connection and everything and stuff. And I'm like, it made me feel good just knowing that he enjoyed my show so much. Cause obviously, you know, it's usually not one way, but people go on a lot of shows. Like I go on a lot of shows and he goes on a lot of shows. So I think it was great that we had a good connection, and so we decided to meet up at Super Bowl because it was, I think, the next couple weeks or something. So we met up at Super Bowl, and he came back on my show and guest co-hosted with me at an event that we were at, and so we kind of just got each other's teams connected, and we stuck with each other through Super Bowl week. And then he was going to be launching his show, and so we had kind of talked about it, and maybe me coming on in a guest host kind of way. But we did our first show on Radio Row that week, and it really just, we synced up, and so we kind of just took off from there. And obviously now, we are on a break, but we're going to be bringing some new things that I'm really excited. Obviously, like I don't know like what we can share and what we can't yet, but I mean, there are a lot of plans that we have. It's definitely difficult being remote and being away from each other, just because there were a lot of plans that we had in the beginning of quarantine, and we were, you know, traveling at first and really going and getting all of our guests in person. So that made things a little bit difficult, but we'll definitely get back to our live stream shows that we do on Twitch with some really exciting guests. And so I think it's, when we start back up again, it'll be a once a week show, maybe twice a week, but I mean, I'll definitely keep you posted. That's for sure. Because they're definitely reworking some things and going to come back strong. So we've, had some fantastic guests on that I'm so honored to have talked to. And then especially doing our roundtables, our live roundtables, where we talk about race and show. Luna, quiet. I'm sorry, my dog's loud. We talk about racial injustice and the social issues going on in our country right now. And I think that that's something a lot of people don't want to touch. They're scared to hurt feelings or, we're not afraid to approach that. So that's what makes us unique and special, and just giving our guests a platform to be themselves and be real, and also interact with our audience in a live format. I'll keep you posted.
Yes.
I know I was disappearing in and out. I actually have a football game coming up, so I'm about to head out. But
awesome.
I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure this is going to continue. But thanks again.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It was an honor chatting with you.
All right, good luck with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that kid is amazing.
Well,
you said actually, you know what? I'm gonna send his page to you so you can check that out more. He's done 1,000 interviews on his show, and actually he interviewed Mahomes in person, and then he interviewed
awesome.
JJ Redick live from the bubble when the Pelicans. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally. I definitely need to check his page out. That is so awesome.
Yeah. So my next question here, actually, I would like to come on your podcast one day. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not taking any more interviews right now, just because I'm going to be ending my season in December, but I'll keep everyone posted when I start back up.
Okay. Yeah. So my next question here for you, what are your thoughts? Especially, this is an important topic that I bring up to pretty much all my guests, women in sports. Everybody should be talking about this. And what's it like seeing yourself and all these other women reporters getting a chance to get to cover these sports, and also women coaching male sports? Also, what's it like seeing them, and how inspiring it is to see?
Yeah, I think it's important to really build each other up. I think as women, we often, in so many different industries, get so competitive and so concerned with, oh, well, she got that job and I should have gotten that job, or whatever it may be. And it really frustrates me that sometimes women in sports get the same way. I used to be that way. When I first started out, I'd be like, what? I have more experience than her. I interviewed for that job. Why did she get that? And that is not a way to go through an industry where we need to be supporting each other. We need to all be on the same team. And once I've really realized that, oh my gosh, like the amount of support that I've received from other women is just so inspiring. And so I feel like it's my job to always support other women, no matter what they should be, no matter what they would be doing, because our biggest issue is honestly just building each other up, because we easily get so put down. No offense, there are so many fantastic males that I know, but by men, that is the biggest fight. And so I do think we are, yes, moving forward and making a lot of progress, but the amount of men that I still get, go back to the kitchen. You don't know anything about sports because you're a woman. You're an idiot. I've shared a personal story, and I'll probably keep sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. I had a trainer who one day was talking about his just view on how the sports culture has changed, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so all of a sudden he looks at me and another client who's a man, but looks at me and he says, no offense, Bridget, but I effing, drops the F-bomb, I effing hate female sports analysts. They have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, so at that moment, I'm like, he's a really good trainer. Should I just keep my mouth shut because I really want to get in great shape? Or should I stand up for what I believe in and, hold up my principles, which I chose the latter. And so I totally went off on him, and he kind of like looked at me and was like trying to pat me on the shoulder, like, there. And I moved my shoulder and I was like, you didn't hurt my feelings. You just completely obliterated any woman who is trying to fight for her space in a male dominated industry. Right. And he kind of went like, whoa, like looked at me as if I'm the crazy woman, And so, that's, I think, difficult just when you're trying to educate and people can't even see why what they're saying is wrong. That's the hardest part. And you know what? Like, we're not going to change everybody. That's, I'm not God, and I'm okay with that, because I think that having some adversity and challenges to face in the industry makes us as women stronger. If you're able to get that fire under your butt from somebody who says something horrible about you, oh, well, you don't know anything about sports, you shouldn't be a reporter, oh, you should not be coaching males because you've never played the game like they have, whatever. So ridiculous. And to me, you take that negativity and you use it to fuel you and fire you up and be better. And once I started doing that and stopped getting down about every guy who would say something so stupid about me, I think I was a lot happier. And I realized really that maybe that person's jealous, or maybe they just see the world in such a primitive way that they can't even imagine having a woman on there. And so really for me, I just always show extra appreciation to any male who sees me in a equal light, So I think that's just important. It's all about mindset.
Yeah, who you remind me of? Aaron Andrews and Carissa Thompson.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will take that as a big oh my gosh, compliment. Sorry, I haven't had my coffee yet this morning, so I
don't know why my words are not coming out. But
it's all good. All good. I think this happens just in COVID, and we're all getting cabin fever. So
I've seen your work. You're doing a great job as
thank you
reporter, and I love what you're doing with Robert Turbin. Hopefully he gets back. I told him hopefully you get back in the league, and he said he wants to come back. So
yeah, I'm praying for him. So just keep your prayers up that he gets picked up soon. I think it'll happen for sure.
Yeah. So I have a couple more questions for you. I know you're on the run, but what are your overall thoughts on this NFL season so far? Even actually, we're already in week 5, which is crazy. And what do you expect from tonight's game with the Bears and Buccaneers?
Yeah, you know what? Well, I just got a notification that Anthony Lynn just named Justin Herbert the starting quarterback. Oh, so, I'm like, when we played the Bucs last week, obviously I got a little bit more insight. That was like the first full game that I'd watched besides of Tom Brady since week 1 when they played the Saints. And, I wasn't really impressed week 1. But last week I was very impressed that they came back. I think that, obviously having Nick Foles at the helm for the Bears is it's just, I think they need a stronger veteran, and Nick Foles has never been he's never been given that leadership role that he really, really deserves. I mean, the guy's won a Super Bowl. Why, I just think, I don't know. There's a lot of excitement in the air, I think, for the Bears organization. I don't know if they kind of have all their pieces working together quite yet. I definitely think it's probably going to be the Bucs coming away with tonight, but I think that the Bears are on the up and up. That's for sure.
What are your thoughts on my Cowboys? What can they do to turn this around?
Well, I'm a big Dak fan for sure. What?
He's putting up numbers, but the thing is,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's all defense. I do have a lot of faith in Mike McCarthy. That's for sure. So, I think that any year, you're adapting to a new coach, a new system, is a little bit difficult. So I think that there's been a big adjustment period. But I don't see. I think that they can make the playoffs. I mean, obviously there's some work to do. But yeah, I think it could happen. It's definitely going to be a wild card situation for sure. But I see it. It could happen.
So my next question here: what's your most memorable interview you guys done on the podcast so far?
Well, I guess with Rob on Turbo Talk, my favorite interview's definitely been with Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, the thing is with guys like that, you can't usually get them for a very long period of time. And so for us to be able to spend an hour and a half with him, just chatting and getting to know him as a human being, was really, really special. I think for both of us, just as kids, it was like bringing that kid hero to life, the kid.
How about your podcast, your own podcast?
Oh gosh, I've had so many interesting interviews. Probably my favorite has been with this duo. Their names are Dan and Walter, and they were both college football stars at Oregon and Washington. And then when the NFL didn't work out and they had to kind of retreat home and figure life out, they both fell into drugs and alcohol, down a spiral. And both of them, so here's the thing. Dan was a 17-year-old high school player when Walter was 11, and Walter would ride his bike to the nearby high school and watch Dan play, and they had this really sweet relationship. And then they both went off to Oregon and Washington, and like I said, went through this whole drug and alcohol spiral, not together. They hadn't seen each other since they were 17 and 11. So one day Dan was trying to end his life and he got arrested by a nearby cop, and a cop, instead of taking him to jail, called a center in Portland to help Dan get help. And the guy who answered was asking questions, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, is that Dan Devaney?" And he said, "Yes." And Walter was like, "That was my childhood hero as a kid." So Walter had gotten himself cleaned up. He went and drove down and picked up Dan, and that was the first time they had seen each other since they were children. And they've helped each other live a sober life, and now they're running this whole organization for any athletes who are struggling, anybody who's dealing with mental health issues. It's really, really, they are so empowering, and it's a beautiful story. So I really enjoy working with them, and I'm hoping I can kind of share an update soon on what they've got going on.
And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers?
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you. I'm so thankful for everybody who's been on the front lines as we've been fighting this pandemic. I don't think we can say it enough. I mean, there's never going to be anything that we can do in return for them that is equal to them being out there saving lives, putting their lives on the line, honestly. And tirelessly. I mean, we don't know when this thing's going to be over, and it's probably not going to be soon. So I just appreciate anybody, nurses, doctors, anybody who's been helping fight this on the front lines, that, we will never be able to give back enough in the amount that you've given to us in keeping us safe. So yeah, I just obviously send out my prayers, my constant prayers, as all we have to do is just sit at home. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I've quite a few girlfriends who are nurses, and they're so exhausted and they're just ready to be done, but they keep going, and the strength that all of those people have is just incredible, and I think should inspire all of us.
And there it is. That wraps up episode 548. Bridget Case, former NFL cheerleader, and now she does a podcast. Her own podcast is Oranges and Slices, right? It's called
After Orange Slices.
Okay. And then she does a podcast with NFL free agent running back Robert Turbin, Turbo Talk. You can find both of them on Twitter, Instagram. You're amazing. Keep up the great work. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime, like I said, Aaron Andrews, Carissa Thompson 2.0.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, so I'll post this on all social media formats so people see this. But just keep grinding, and you and your family stay safe.
Thank you so much. You too. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Yep.